Friends, hello the world. Welcome to this live transitioning humanitarians episode that we do every week with Vicky. Unfortunately, Vicky couldn't join us today, so I'm going to be doing this on my own. And today I want to give you a specific answer as to how to use whatever is bothering to our advantage. And I will be using judgment or fear of judgment as an example, but you can use many others. And the logic behind will be the same. And I keep coaching people a lot on this topic of fear of judgment. And it seems like we have a lot of fear, not only of other people judging us, but also ourselves judging ourselves. So, therefore, how can we find or how can we use this fear in our own advantage instead of keep fearing it, keep avoiding it, and therefore not going for what we really want, right? So, that's the topic. So, I'm inviting you to find this gold underneath the judgment and how we can do that. I want to give you three specific examples that I have coached people around, humanitarians around very recently. One of them, in fact, even yesterday. So to highlight the point of how we can do this, right? So um, to give you an overview of what type of context we're talking about is one that I will be giving example of is the topic of where she was afraid of the judgment by someone in the coordination meeting, and she felt like this was the criticism that she received was against her personally, even though that person was talking about the team, about the organization or the coordination mechanism in general, but she felt like this was still affecting her personally. So fear of judgment plus attack and how to deal with it. That was one question, right? The other case that I want to talk about is a humanitarian who worked in the humanitarian sector for over 20 years and decided to quit to start his own business, and therefore fearing judgment of people who will be asking a lot of questions about why he is doing this. Is he on his right mind? And all of this, right? So that's the other topic, and how we can use this type of fear or this type of judgment, how we can use in the way that serves us. That's what we're going to talk about. And the third example is that I was coaching actually also a humanitarian yesterday in terms of starting her own business and fearing judgment from ex-colleagues or sorry, current colleagues or colleagues that she used to work with before, and then exploring that, right? So let's go to the first example where the humanitarian who was afraid or who rather felt affected by the judgment or by the criticism that was coming from one of the coordination members, and she felt like it was a very personal one. Now, usually, what we do in such situations is that we either get defensive about it or we get very affected by it and we try to delay things or we freeze and we don't really do much else with that information, with that judgment, right? Because we believe that rightfully so that other people shouldn't judge us, but also we just get so scared at times or we get annoyed or angry and we don't use this information. But instead, what I proposed to her yesterday, I said, okay, let's use this information in terms of why do you feel affected personally by this comment and what's behind that fear or what's behind that hurt feeling, right? And as we started understanding in her situation, what we realized she was telling me is that she felt like this type of criticism felt her feel um, what's the word, questioned her capacity, right? Someone was questioning her capacity, and then I asked her, okay, what is it exactly in the capacity that you felt she was questioning, this other person was questioning her, right? And then, even though the other person didn't say anything in terms of like personally attacking this client of mine, but still, my client interpreted that to mean that my capacity is being questioned, right? Unless we got curious as to what exactly in the capacity, we found out that she has this feeling that she's not really good strategically to be leading or to be having the conversation um, around, and therefore she felt insecure about that. And now we got even more curious as to, okay, what does that exactly mean? And I asked her, does she feel currently that she's good at being strategic? And she said, no, I'm maybe 50% good. And I said, okay, what is the other 50%, right? What's the other 50% that we believe like there is that we need to be 100% good at and what that looks like? And she didn't know what that looks like. And this is just to show that when we're afraid of judgments, we usually have our own hidden either insecurity or fear or where we judge ourselves. And therefore, when we hear someone else criticizing us, we take it personally or we take it like a double judgment because we're already not sure about that part of ourselves. And therefore, someone else saying something, we attribute it to that wound, in quotes, right? And therefore, we feel like we are now extra sensitive or we feel we're hurt. And then when we start understanding what's actually behind it, why we are taking this as a personal attack or why we are taking it as a criticism, what is actually being criticized, then we start understanding what's underneath, right? So in this client's case, what we have discovered is that she was not sure about her ability to be strategic 100%, and we started understanding what that 100% looked like. She didn't really know what that could look like, but she felt like she was 50% good. And I know this for many of humanitarians, especially women. I must say that when I coach, we often have this feeling of I'm not good enough story, right? And when we start getting curious as to, okay, what is that good enough looks like, and what is the the ultimate goal basically we're searching for or going for, we're not often sure what that looks like. And therefore we just keep feeling like we should be somewhere here, but we're not. And therefore whenever we hear other people judging us or we feel like they're judging us, or we feel like we're judging ourselves, we're judging ourselves for things that we're not even sure about. And therefore, judgment here serves a great purpose for us to understand why are we judging ourselves or why do we feel like we're being judged and what is exactly we're being judged on, and do we want to do something about it, right? In this case, it was a great insight to find out, okay, she feels like she's not strategic enough. And I asked then, what would be strategic enough version of you looks like? And then she told me what are the areas that she needs to work on. And now we have something to work on and improve if we wanted to. If not, we would at least understand why we are being affected so much and why we're being triggered, and then what are we going to do about it, right? So therefore you can see that judgment can serve a good purpose in that way if we're willing to go beyond the fear and understanding what is it actually that we're afraid of. The second case scenario that I want to present is the client who said that he wants to quit his humanitarian job after 20 years and he wants to start his own business. And then he was very afraid that if he said this to his family members, everyone would start judging him and saying, how could you do this? Or why would you do this? Are you in the right mind? And all of these things, right? And he felt very insecure as to how to confront that and what to say. And if you're in similar situation where you feel like someone is judging you or going to judge you, and in that situation, I would love for you to get curious as to asking yourself, what do you think, how will you feel if they ask you this question, right? So usually when people like our family members or our loved ones, friends, when they ask us about why would you be transitioning, would you be leaving the humanitarian sector where you are having a great position or whatever it is, usually we may have one of two reactions. Either we get very defensive or insecure or this type of reaction. Or the other reaction is we understand their worry, we understand why they may be saying it, but at the same time we're able to explain in a calm, nice manner as to why we're doing this, right? But if our reaction is the first one, in terms of us not being sure or us feeling like, oh my God, I wish no one would ask me that question, or I'm actually unsure of why I'm doing this, then it's also great insight for us to then say, okay, why are we unsure about what we're doing? Why are we still questioning? And if we're questioning something in our journey, where and exactly what are we questioning it? Right? Again, this is a good information that for us to understand more about where are insecurities or unsureness or doubts coming from? Are these doubts more like a habitual thing that we keep doubting, or it's something specific that we actually need to pay attention? And all of this information and insight can come if we're willing to go beyond the judgments that we're afraid of, right? So if we're willing to go and understand what those judgments are and why are we feeling this way, why are we reacting this way to this judgment, then we start understanding what's underneath, where we might be actually judging ourselves heavily. For instance, a lot of my clients tell me that the way they judge is that you're not good enough for this. Who do you think you are? I used to have the same type of reactions a lot of the times in the beginning. And the good thing about those type of conversations that come up from within, we need to then decide what to do with them instead of just letting to ignore them, or instead of just keep fearing or having this insecurity about it, right? Because whatever the decision that we're making, whether to transition or not, or how to transition, what we need to understand is that we need to be we need to be convinced of our decision, right? We need to really explain to ourselves why are we making this decision and how we're going to make it work. And if we keep hearing comments or judgments from other family members who are probably worried or who are not sure or not understanding where you're going, but they at the same time want you to be safe, they are coming from that space probably, and therefore our job in that moment might be to explain why we did it and how we did it if we wanted to. Or we have also the other option of like understanding where our insecurities still are and what are we going to do about those insecurities. In other words, what will specifically help us to not be as insecure as we are, because until we have the results or the evidence of its working coming in, until that point we may keep feeling insecure about our decision, insecure about what we're doing, and that's a very natural, normal way of reacting when we're going to the uncharted territory, right? But still we may be able to say, okay, I'm feeling insecure about this part of the decision. I'm feeling insecure about the part about my business idea, and what am I going to do about that insecurity? Do I need to do something about it? So that's the invitation that we can, or that's the insight that we can have a look. And the third case that I want to present that we were discussing also recently was another client of mine who wants to start her business and transitioning while doing her humanitarian work, also thinking about starting her own business. And of course, in that process, what we find is that people start like having a lot of objections, a lot of obstacles as to why it will not work, right? And that's also very normal. And I suggest that any one of you who are thinking of starting something new, always look at all the ways how your brain thinks this is going to be a problem, this is going to be a problem, and also get yourself to answering or solving those problems in advance. So in this case, my client was saying that she's one of the obstacles that she feels is that her former colleagues from that operation that she worked for, they will be judging her, right? And then I asked her, okay, what do you think they will be judging about? And what do you think they will be saying that will be judgments from their side? What do you think they will say? And then she said that they will say that who am I to talk about this topic, or who am I to do this, start this business when I don't have experience. And then I challenged her on this and I said, but you already told me that you have experience in this field. Why would you feel like you still don't have experience when you actually do? And then we realized from this conversation that her brain, like many of our brains, mine used to do this too, her brain was selectively taking the of um, evidence of she actually had that experience, but her brain was not using that evidence to support her new journey, her new transitioning journey, because of fear, right? When we're afraid, it's fascinating to me, and I have seen it in my own case as well, is that when we are afraid, whether it's for transitioning or whether we're afraid of judgments from other people, our brains don't tend to rely on the evidence of the past, even though we may have had the evidence of how we did this type of work, or how we uh, did this type of challenge and now overcame this challenge, and our brains don't take that evidence as evidence and instead keep telling us that we actually don't know what we're talking about. We don't have experience, and who are we to talk in front of other people, right? All of this comes up even though we have the evidence to support it, even though we have the evidence of the past to support what we're doing now is actually continuation of what we had before. So therefore, it's fascinating how fear can do to us, that fear can like diminish or even not take into account any evidence of the past to support our case, but instead keep showing to us how we don't have all the things what it takes to do the thing that we want. And in that case, I think the fear is just trying to protect us, and our brains somehow have this like fear protective mechanism that says, as long as we tell ourselves that we don't know what we're doing, we don't have the experience of the past, then we are not going to pursue this, and therefore we will not be in danger, kind of thing, right? So you can see that all of this conversation started from fear of judgment, right? So when we get interested in what the actual fear, like what the actual judgment could be, and then we start understanding where we are actually feeling like we're not sure, or where we're not using the evidence that we actually have, and why we're not using the evidence of the past to support that we know what we're talking about. We have the experience, we have the expertise, and now we can do the other thing. And as in continuation, why we're not accepting that evidence. And if we understand that this is how our fear brain wants to protect us, we will also know that in the future, even if there will be evidence to support that we can do what we want to do, our fear may want to protect us and keep telling us, excuse me, that we cannot do this, that we have never done this before, and then magically forget some of the experience that we actually have. And the all of this to say is that when we understand ourselves so much better by how we react to judgments, whether from others or ourselves, and why we are reacting that way, and how the consequences of that reaction, right? And we start seeing that actually judgment can be very useful in that way. It can give you insights into the areas of ourselves that we didn't even look at it. And therefore, my recommendation for you is, instead of dismissing judgments, or instead of being afraid of them, or being just mad at them, or even though go ahead and be mad at other people if they are there judging you. So there's no like right or wrong way to do this. I find if you feel like you're angry at them, go and be angry. But what I really want to invite you to look at it is, whatever the judgments that you feel is coming from others, or the judgments that you are giving to yourself, if you dig behind the doors of that judgment of what it is saying, where the judgment is actually going to, you find out so much more about yourself. And you not only find out so much about yourself, but also you know how to then improve what to do about that specifically, instead of keep fearing them and hopefully not encountering that person again, or giving up on your dreams of what you want to do just because you were afraid of facing those judgments, or you were afraid of facing your own judgments, right? Because some of our own judgments, I find, are a lot heavier than anyone else judging us. And many of our dreams, many of our ways of doing things, the what we really want to be doing, we don't go for it because of our own judgments. And unless we understand what's behind them, and why are we judging the way we are judging, and what is this actually telling us, and we start understanding them, we will not be going for what we want, and therefore we will not be living the life that we want, or we will not be doing the impact that we want because of that fear of judgment. So, my dears, I hope that this was useful to showcase 3 different ways to find out a lot of insights into how and where we could improve, where we don't need to do anything, where we're not using the evidence that we actually have, the experience that we have, and all of this we like figured out and found out thanks to understanding and like looking closely at judgments of other people or of our own. And I would love to invite you to coach with me to get clear on where you're afraid of your judgments or judgments of other people, what they're telling you, and how you can use them in the way that you learn from them so much about yourself that you no longer fear judgments of other people or your own judgments, and you keep going to what you really want to go for. So, thank you so much. Have a beautiful week, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye.